Hello students, welcome to the e-education platform of Pathshala. Today we are going to study about chapter 15, that is light, of class 7 science. Now in this chapter, what are the different topics that we are going to cover are, first of all, as you already know that there are some terms which you should know that you have studied in 6th class. First of all, we are going to discuss that, and after that we are going to move on the further topics. After that, we are going to understand about how light travels along a straight line. Then we are going to understand about the reflection of light. Then lateral inversion, which is a very important property of plane mirrors. Then about different type of mirrors, that is our spherical mirror and lenses. What are their uses, how they are useful to us, that we are going to understand in this topic. After that, we are going to understand how the sunlight, why the sunlight is sunlight white or colored, that we are going to understand. And from after reading this chapter and going through this chapter, you will be able to distinguish between why the sunlight is whether white or colored. So these are the topics that we are going to study in this chapter. So let's start our chapter. Now first of all, what is light actually? Why you are able to see things which are present around you? Right? That is just because of light. When light falls on some object, that object or light reflects back from that object, and because of that, when that reflection reaches to our eyes, we are able to detect or see things, or the objects which are present in surround to us are visible to us, right? So light is a very important thing, or basically in terms we can say that light is a form of energy that passes in the form of rays, right? That you're going to see how rays are formed, how when light falls on object, that how that rays reflect, or how some of the ray passes. That is another term that you're going to study in your later classes. Now in your 6th class, what are the different things that you have studied? So first of all, source. Now what is source exactly here? So source is the object from where the light is coming, right? Like in our case, if I see in our surrounding how the things are visible to us outside, when you are playing outside or moving outside during the daytime, that is by the help of sun, the sunlight which is reaching to us. Because of that, we are able to see things. So in that case, sun is our source. But when you are present inside your houses or inside your schools or inside some building or apartment, how are you able to see things? Like some of the sunlight also come there, but if it is completely dark, what do? You switch on your lights, right? Now in that case, you see the lights through, you get the light through tube lights, bulbs. So in that case, our source is tube light, bulbs, etc. So source is basically from where the light is reaching to us, right? Now after that, you have studied about luminous and non-luminous objects. So what are luminous and non-luminous objects? Basically, the objects that have their own light. What are luminous? Luminous objects are basically that have their own light. Example, sun. So sun has its own light. Sun won't get light from any other thing. But what about non-luminous? If I say about non-luminous, so what are non-luminous objects? So non-luminous objects are the one which do not have their own light. They do not have their own light. So here in this case, they get the light from other. So here the example is moon. Now moon doesn't, we see that moon emits some light during the night. Because of that, we are able to see things outside during the night time. But do you know that moon doesn't has its own light? It gets the light from the sun. Now like this, the examples. Now the objects that doesn't have their own light, they get the light from other things. That objects are non-luminous, right? So that is luminous and non-luminous. Then the next terms are transparent, translucent and opaque. Now how the objects are classified into these three categories, that is just how these objects, how some of the objects are able to transmit light through them. If the object allows the light to pass from it completely, that is, we are able to see the things that are present on the other side when we are seeing through that object. So that type of objects are transparent. So what are transparent objects here basically? Transparent objects are the objects that allows the light to pass through them completely. And because of that, as they allow the light to pass through them completely, because of that, we are able to see through them, or we can say that we are able to see the things which are present on back of them or behind of them. So these type of objects are known as transparent object. An example for that is glass, right? You are able to see through glass completely, right? Then the next one is translucent. So what is translucent basically? In this case, there is passing of light from, like, these objects does allow the passing of light, but partially. Like some of the portion of light is allowed to pass and other one is reflected back. Now because of that, we does see the objects that are present behind them, but they are visible to us like quite blurred. So these type of objects are translucent. Now here you can say that the example for that is butter paper. Or when you put some oil on the paper, what you can see is that in that case the paper becomes translucent, and when you see through them, like when light passes through them, you will be able to see the objects that are present behind them, but quite blurred, not exactly, not properly. So these type of objects are translucent. After that, the last one is opaque. Now what are opaque objects? So here opaque objects are the one that doesn't allow the light to pass through them at all. They completely block the light. They completely block the light. That is, they doesn't allow the light to pass through them. And because of that, what happens? The light comes back or bounces back. Now these type of objects are known as opaque objects, as we won't be able to see through them, like what are the things that are present behind them. So these are the objects which are known as opaque. So that is how the objects are described or divided into three forms based on the amount of light they pass through them. Now here, if I'll talk about opaque objects, so what are the opaque objects you can see around you? The most important is walls. You won't be able to see, like the brick wall, not the glass wall, right? Glass wall is transparent, but brick wall. So what is brick wall? You won't be able to see the things that are present behind them. So that type of things are opaque things. So that is how the objects are divided into three types, basically classified into three types on the base of amount of light they pass through them. The next one is reflection. So what is reflection basically? Here, the thing that you have understood or studied in the 6th class is just that when light fall on something, like here is some object. So when the light fall on this object, it comes back, or we can say that it bounces back. So this is reflection of light that you have covered in the 6th class. In our later slides, we'll discuss in brief or in detail like what is exactly reflection, how it takes place, and what are the rays, these rays, and why these arrows are put. That all things we are going to understand in this chapter. After that, the main thing that you have understood or studied in your 6th class is shadows. So how shadows are formed? Why shadows are formed? That is just because when the objects doesn't allow the light to pass through them. Now see here clearly why the shadows form, or what you have studied already. Now when the light forms, I have already told you that light comes in the form of rays, right? Now when the light falling on this object, here, now as the object is opaque, right? Now arrows are just put here on the rays just to show the direction of the light, like in which direction it's coming. Now when when the light falls on some object, the opaque object, as we've already seen that it doesn't allow the light to pass through it. Now what happens? The light reflects or goes back. Now in that case, when it goes back, it moves like this. Here. Now, why shadows are forming? As light is not coming, so why shadows are forming exactly? So shadow is just forming because of these, like here, as light is not going on, यहाँ पर क्या होगा? यहाँ पर एक black spot form हो जाएगा that shows the shadows, and the light rays which are passing above or below the object, right? So they show the lighting area here all around, but in front and in the exactly at the back where the light rays are not coming, there the formation of shadows take place. So shadows formation takes place just because of the opaque object, as it doesn't allow the light to pass through them, and hence shadows are dark in color, or we can say black in color. So these are the things that you have already studied in the 6th class, and just remember these headings properly and the meaning of these headings as we are going to move ahead in our chapter.